What's up everybody, Dan Rodriguez here. Today we're going to be going over the hip portion of the joint warm-up, having strength and resiliency in our hips and trying to prep ourselves for that is great and beneficial for us, especially as triggers if we're looking for getting switches, if we're looking to have nice phalangs in our shurikens, if we're trying to produce any kind of height, right, coming off the ground, exploding up and off the ground, absorbing impact, and those are the big things. So, without further ado, let's get into the hip portion of the joint warm-up. Now, this part would be a bit easier and probably be a little bit better if maybe you had a wall. I don't want to get too far away from the camera, so I'm going to have to try and do everything from standing. But, so the first part is going to be leg lifts, right? Well, actually all of it, for the most part, it's going to be leg lifts. But, so we have 3 different angles that we can take these leg lifts at. So what I like to do is just put my foot, hopefully you can see this, put my foot right here out in front of me. And you're not going to try things you want to avoid. We don't want to be kicking up, right? We're not doing this. We shouldn't have any excess motion in our arms or anything when we're doing this. If we're coming off to the side, there's going to be a little bit of tilt, right? So maybe you see that, a little bit of tilt, hopefully you can, but we're not trying to be all the way out here and balancing ourselves. Everything should just try and, for the most part, stay up and down. And you're just going to squeeze. You're going to feel a contraction here at the top of your quads. You point those toes, don't point those toes, doesn't really matter. And you're going to lift and squeeze and try and lift it up as high as you can. Bring it back down. Squeeze, back down. Now, another thing is, from the side, is that hopefully, I'll be doing this right, but when I lift, there's going to be a little bit of a tilt, right? But it's not going to be crazy. So I shouldn't be bending all the way down here, right? And I also shouldn't be pitching all the way forward. You just want to try and keep everything, like we talk about, everything stacked up and down. Lift, there's going to be a little bit of a tilt, but not crazy, right? So that's the first lift. Do that about anywhere between 5 to 10 times. The second portion of this, where we go off to the side, is going to be a little bit different, but the ideas, for the most part, stay the same. So when we're going off to the side, you are going to see a little bit of hip or shift. You are going to see a bit of a shift in your balance, but you are not trying to come all the way out here to try and compensate for mobility, right? You should be able to just kind of, this is especially, would be nice if you had something, let's see. If you had something to balance on, right? So I have my hand here, something to balance me, and I'm just going to try and lift and squeeze. So again, you probably see a little bit of a shift, but I don't want to be all the way down here, right? I want to try and close this distance, and you're gonna feel a huge squeeze. I'll fall down. Feel a huge squeeze right here in your glutes and in this lateral portion of your hips. So same thing, you don't want to be bending forward, you don't want to be bending backwards, you don't want to be here, and you don't want to be closing in too much. You just want to try and keep everything, again, up and down. Okay, then again, leg lifts as much as you can. Boom. Those are your lateral leg lifts. So our third leg lift that we're going to do is going to be our backwards leg lift. Now, for this one, we can pitch a little bit. We want to hinge at the hips. So we don't want to have this kind of like back slump. We want to kind of keep everything nice and tight, right? Same thing, same idea. Everything's going to stay in alignment. We're just not going to go horizontally. So again, this is great if you have something to balance yourself with, would probably be best. So you're going to pitch forward, boom, and squeeze this leg, right? Try and squeeze it. You're going to feel a contraction right here in your hamstrings and in your butt, right? And things that we want to avoid for this warm-up is that we don't really want to come out. Not yet. Granted, this is the same position that we are going for whenever we're doing our rises or touchdown rise, right? We typically tend to open up at this point, but since we're specifically trying to get this lower back leg and we're trying to get these hips and our glutes to kind of really squeeze and contract, we're going to try and keep our hips and everything square to the ground instead of opening up and engaging more of our lower back and more of our twisting in our abdominal muscles. So keep everything under the ground, squeeze, point, get this pinch a little bit. It shouldn't hurt, it's not a hurt pinch, it should just be a lower back. Tight, it's lower back's tight, everything's tight right here. Boom, come down. Squeeze, come down. Same thing. Another thing to avoid, right, is we're not kicking up. We're not doing this or anything like that. Everything should be in a controlled manner. Squeeze, come down. Squeeze, come down. Just like that. Again, 5 to 10 reps for each leg. Yes. Now, this more advanced one, we're going to combine it all together, and now it's kind of what's called like a hip medley. It's called hip medley or hip car. So if you don't want to just specifically isolate those 3 movements, this is something else that you can do, and it incorporates all 3 of the movements all together at once. So big things that we want to avoid, just like we talked about in the last 3 things. We don't want to have excessive motion or movement anywhere. We want to try and keep our torsos and our legs as still as possible, and only have the only thing move is just that specific hip socket as we go through the exercise. So we'll start off here or here. So the easier version of this is if you keep your knee bent. So bent knee, right? Lift up, bring it to the outside. Now from here, you're going to lift this ankle up into hip internal rotation. You're going to bring it behind you, and bam. Right, this is where you want to be. I'm probably pitching forward a little bit too much, and I have this tight contraction right here in my hamstrings and my butt. And so from here, come down, come back up, get that same amount of contraction, bring those hips up and around to the side, that internal rotation, drop this ankle down, only moving here at the hips, and bring it towards the inside. 5 to 10. It takes a lot out of, it's a bit of an exercise. So same thing, but now if we go with straight leg, the straight leg is going to be a little bit harder to try and control ourselves around. Lift this leg up, bring it to the outside, boom. So here's kind of like round kick position, right? Try to lift this leg up a little bit higher, get that nice tight contraction right here in our glutes, bring it behind us, try to avoid moving over too much, not having whole lot compensations, bring that foot down. Foot comes up, have a tight contraction in our lower back, glutes, leg, bring it around, boom, round kick position, hips in, squeeze, come down. Oh, and so that is your hip medley. You go once, or from front to back, back to front is 1, 5 reps. 5 reps typically does the job of warming up. Okay, so you don't want to go too crazy with this one unless you're specifically working like mobility. Okay, so onto the very 2 simple exercises that just about everybody can do. It's an even easier way to warm up your hips. Do this, but so maybe some cues, and this is just for quick warm-ups, right? So this isn't covered in the joint warm-up. This is something I just like to go over. So for our hips, right, so I discussed at the very beginning, for squats, for producing height, and hinge for producing flip. Okay, so for squats, we want to ensure that when we do squat, so we're just having a normal body weight squat. So when you come down, boom, chest up, eyes up, chest up, eyes up. You can have your hands in front, hands right here, doesn't really matter. Making sure that we have a nice parallel angle Some people don't like having their knees over their ankles. It depends. It really depends on how you're built. If you're taller, if you're a much taller person, then yes, you will probably have just a slight knees over ankles. It's just the way you are. If you're shorter, kind of like me, you're going to be able to come back a little bit more. You're going to be able to have that, boom, nice over like knees over ankles, all that good stuff. Like a perfect squat position. If you're taller, your knees will probably end up going over just a tiny bit. So, now for the hinge part. So, feet shoulder width apart, same idea. Now, keep everything locked in, shoulders, spine. The only thing that should move is the hips. Have a slight bend in your knees, and now you're just going to come forward. You should try and really only focus on bending here at your hips, and you'll know. So right here, I'm getting a tightness right here, a contraction in my my hamstrings. Then from here, you just squeeze those glutes, nice and tight. Same thing. Come down, feel that tension, squeeze up at the top. So, squat, quick hinge. If you don't have a whole lot of time, those are two alternatives you can do to the whole leg lift, hip medley mobility. My name is David Rodriguez. I hope you enjoyed this. Please come back for next time. Click the description below so you can get the joint warm-up. It's completely free. There's nothing you need to do. Just click on the link, download it so you have it. Next time we'll be going over the spine portion of the joint warm-up. Follow me on stomp.tricking on Instagram. Hope you'll have a great day.